that feeling, that strange sense that you're being evaluated? Not like in a classroom, but in a totally normal conversation, or maybe in a relationship, or at a new job. Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down those super subtle, unspoken signs that someone is secretly testing you. Let's dive in. Okay, so we all know this kind of test, right? You study for it, you prepare, you know exactly what the rules are and what's expected of you. It's pretty straightforward. But the tests we're talking about today, that's a whole different ballgame. They are hidden inside our everyday interactions. There's no study guide for these, and honestly, sometimes you don't even realize you're taking one until you start to feel that weird, creeping sense of pressure.
And that's really where it all begins. It doesn't start with some big, obvious challenge. Nope. It just starts with a simple, unsettling feeling.
It's almost like the whole vibe in the room just shifts. You can't quite put your finger on why, but suddenly you feel it. Your words, your actions, even just how you're sitting there quietly, it all feels like it carries so much more weight. It's like you're being measured against some invisible yardstick. And this feeling, it can be incredibly isolating. It's as if, just for a moment, you've been pulled away from everyone else and shoved under a spotlight. Everyone else seems to be just going about their business, but you're the one being scrutinized. And you know, this feeling isn't just for quiet little rooms. You could be on a packed city street, surrounded by tons of people, but that sense of being singled out, of being put on display, it can make you feel totally and completely alone. Think about a friend who makes a joke at your expense in front of a group, and then just watches. They're just waiting to see how you'll react. So that unsettling feeling kicks in. And what happens next? Well, now you find yourself trying to navigate what feels like a maze of uncertainty. It's kind of like you're driving down a road that is just shrouded in fog. You know you have to keep moving forward, but you can't see the turns up ahead. Maybe a boss gives you this vague, really high-stakes task with zero instructions, just to quote, see what you do with it. The expectations are never said out loud, which leaves you guessing what it is they really want. Yeah, and that uncertainty just gets deeper, you know? Every conversation can start to feel like you're walking down a dark hallway. You're just hoping to find a door, a sign, any clue that tells you you're going in the right direction. But there's nothing, just ambiguity and mixed messages. When there are no clear rules, you're pretty much forced to operate on guesswork. And that constant guessing, man, is that draining. It just breeds anxiety and self-doubt, and you start questioning your every move. So what do? You turn into a detective, right? You start analyzing the punctuation in their text messages, the exact tone of their voice on a call. You replay conversations in your head, dissecting every word choice. You're trying to piece together a puzzle without even knowing what the final picture is supposed to look like. Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. This is the big pivot. We need to flip the script on this whole thing and look at it through a completely different lens. So let's just shift our perspective for a second. I want you to consider this. What if their need to test you says absolutely nothing about your worth and says everything about their own insecurity? You know that friend who's always testing your loyalty? Maybe they've been betrayed before. Their test is a reflection of their fear, not a judgment of your character. And this right here, this is the real tug of war. You're caught in the middle of trying to conform to their invisible, unspoken expectations versus staying true to your own core values. This is the real battleground. And you gotta be so careful here. When you focus too much on passing their test, you risk getting lost in their distorted reflection of who they think you should be. You start changing your behavior, second-guessing your gut feelings, and that vortex can just pull you further and further away from your authentic self. So let's stop asking, how can I pass? And start asking a much, much better question. What does this test reveal about the person giving it? Is it really about judging your character, or is it more about satisfying some need for control or validation within them? All right, this brings us to the final and honestly, the most powerful part of all this, how you find your way out of that maze and back to yourself. See, the real win here isn't about getting their approval. The goal is to find your own inner clarity, to let your own sun break through the clouds of their judgment. It's all about taking your power back. So how do you actually do that? Well, first, just acknowledge the pressure. See their test for what it is. It's their game, not your report card. Second, anchor yourself in what you know is true about you, in your values. Third, act from that place of authenticity, not from a place of trying to please them. And finally, and this is the big one, You have to consciously let go of needing them to approve of you.
Because you know what? At the end of the day, there's only one scorecard that truly matters. Getting a thumbs up from someone who feels the need to test you, that's temporary. But being aligned with yourself, that's permanent.
And that is the whole point, isn't it? That calm, centered feeling, that inner peace. It doesn't come from acing someone else's test. It comes from the quiet confidence of knowing exactly who you are and acting on it, no matter who's watching. So, I'm going to leave you with this one last thought to chew on. The next time you feel that subtle shift, that little feeling of being measured, just take a breath and ask yourself, are you trying to prove your worth to them, or are you living in a way that proves it to yourself?